My name is Jeremy Goddamn Masters. Welcome back to the Masterclass. Last night, Smackdown celebrated its 1000th episode, a crowning achievement for any show to be sure, and a testament to the WWE's ability, whatever faults we may find, to keep fans invested in the product for generations. And I'm here, a humble 25-year-old educator and substance abuser, to shit all over that. So let's get to it, kids. We open the night celebrating the almost 20-year achievement with a video package regaling us with the biggest Smackdown moments from the last 1000 episodes, featuring the likes of Stone Cold, Eddie Guerrero, Booker T, and Edge, along with some of the most memorable moments from the company's history. Afterwards, the show opened properly with Truth TV, a one-episode-old parody of a segment that began on Raw. I don't know who came up with this transition, but give that man a raise. R-Truth and Carmella introduced their first guest, Stephanie McMahon, who predictably ran down the crowd in her usual patronizing tone, but was shortly after interrupted by everyone's favorite aluminum fox, Shane O'Mac. Now, since we already saw Raw 25 earlier this year, I guess we already knew what was coming next, and sure enough, Vince sauntered down to the ring, as the prophecy foretold, and led R-Truth, Carmella, and his two pentagenarian children in a dance break, thus ensuring the return of Baphomet to enact his vengeance upon Babylon for her arrogance. It was a weird segment, and I can't help thinking back to Raw 25 when this same segment ended with Steve Austin stunning the entire ring into oblivion. And while I know they couldn't just rehash that moment verbatim, it was pretty odd to see that just a few months later, Vince has forgotten that we just want to see him get beat up. Our first lesson comes in the form of the People's Champion's immortal words. Know your role, Vinny. Up next, we had a tag match between the Usos and Daniel Bryan and AJ Styles, and no joke, this match felt real out of place on this show. I mean, for a red letter event like this, you wouldn't expect that you'd have your champion teaming with his opponent to take on a tag team that has nothing to do with their feud. That's a throwaway segment if I've ever seen one. The Usos won after some miscommunication between Bryan and Styles. Backstage, Paige had a meet and greet with some former Smackdown general managers, Vicky Guerrero, Teddy Long, and John Laurinaitis. Up next, the moment this episode was sold on, the reunion of Evolution featuring all of your favorites. You had Fancy Boy Come Scary Man Triple H, lovable sex pest Ric Flair, unhinged snake person Randy Orton, and Batista was also there. Everyone got a few words in on the importance of Evolution. Randy used his to call everyone else relics and to hype himself, and considering how his time with Evolution ended, everyone just sort of let him. Batista went on a 4.5-minute rant to cover the reasons he was happy to be here, own the haters, and tease a possible return feud with Trips. Batista was the real standout of this segment, especially considering how long it's been since he stood in a WWE ring, and while he didn't leave on the best of terms with the fans, it's clear that time has healed most of those wounds. Lesson 2, absence makes the heart grow fonder, but I guess so does being one of the Avengers, so do your thing, man. Next, we had what could by some definitions be called a match between Miz and Rusev, which almost immediately was interrupted by Aiden English distracting Rusev, who was summarily rolled up for a 3 count. Tough luck, but at least the match didn't really mean anything. In the afterglow, Rusev flattened Aiden's face against the ring steps. Following this, we had another big return when the NC-17 fighting machine Edge came out to briefly recap his time on SmackDown. Before playing mediator to Becky Lynch, telling her not to give up her friendship with Charlotte Flair for fame and a championship reign, the adoration of the crowd, the respect of the locker room, and absolutely no downsides. Charlotte interrupted to attack Lynch, and that was kind of it. Getting back to the previous point, Edge was giving Becky the works because he had also sacrificed friendships for opportunities, and looking back on his career, he now sees that the real WWE World Heavyweight Championships were the friends he made along the way. And the only problem with this is that Edge has been hosting a podcast with his best friend Christian for like 6 years now. He's not sitting alone at home and looking at his titles and wondering if it was worth it. He's sitting at home with his best friend looking at his titles knowing it was worth it. Lesson 3, kids, it's not hard to rewrite history, but it's next to impossible to rewrite the present. I don't know if this was announced last week or something. It really seemed like it just came out of nowhere, but next up we had a match between the New Day and The Bar for the Tag Team Championships. Xavier and Big E took on Sheamus and Cesaro in an all-around pretty good match. These two teams really embody the trope of acrobats versus powerhouses, and they can usually be counted on to put on a show. The match was chugging along with only some minor noble interference from Kofi, who took heart the lesson I had for him in my SummerSlam video. But near the end of the match, the crowd was silenced by the crooning vibrato of Big Show's entrance. The anthropomorphic porterhouse steak sidled to the ring, and if you've watched 15 minutes of WWE in the early to mid-2000s, you've seen Big Show turn heel approximately 9 times. So it came as a surprise to no one except Big E when he chokeslammed Kofi through the announce desk, which moments prior had been preoccupied by Booker T and Jerry Lawler. The distraction was enough to allow Sheamus to brogue kick Big E's lights out and win the SmackDown tag titles, with Big Show apparently joining the Bar as the third man. This leads us cleanly to our 4th lesson. Maybe watch the show you're on? Well, I think this will set up some fun 6-man tag matches down the road. I can't help but feel that New Day could have avoided this fate by going back into almost any of those 1000 episodes of SmackDown to see how gigantic Shoseph operates on the reg. In our main event, the returning Rey Mysterio took on US champion Shinsuke Nakamura in a non-title match for some reason. The match was solid, if a little lackluster in the story department. Rey demonstrated that he hasn't lost his step and got off all the big moves he's known for, beating Nakamura and making a statement. And that statement was, I'm back and I'm not going anywhere for at least 18 months, because I can't. I really tried though. After the match, Undertaker's music hit and he came to the ring to not at all acknowledge Rey Mysterio. He was actually here to reiterate his final lines from his promo on Raw and leave. That's the end of the show. So just to clarify, for the 1000th episode of Smackdown, they ended the show by recapping the first hour segment from a non-milestone episode of Raw. Listen, Smackdown, I'm not going to be offended on your behalf like most millennials, but that is some grade A BoJack horseshit. You are a proud, strong, independent wrestling show who don't need no red brand. Don't you take that lying down. You want respect just because you earned it? That's not enough. You have to demand the respect that you know you deserve. And that's our final lesson, kids. Next week we have the go-home shows for Evolution and my first ever prediction special, but until then, my name is Jeremy Goddamn Masters. This has been the Masterclass. You're welcome. Getting back to the previous point, Edge was giving Becky the works because he had also sacrificed friendships for opportunities, and looking back on his career, he now sees that the real WWE World Heavyweight Championships were the friends he made along the way. Fuck. There was this moment in Batista's promo where he tells Ric Flair not to whip his dick out, and there was this look in Ric Flair's eye. I don't know, it wasn't like a threat, it was like, but Dave, how are we gonna close the segment? Cut this.